Okay, here we are with a new MiSTercade version 1.1. I thought I'd put together a video going over some of the small changes in MiSTercade version 1.1, as well as a full assembly video because as you can see, there are quite a few parts and pieces here. So let's get started. First up, the only real change on MiSTercade version 1.1 is the addition of this jumper right here. You see, on MiSTercade, what I decided to do was generate the 5 volt for the DE10 Nano and all the peripherals locally using this buck converter from the 12 volt source. A few people had issues with aging components in their arcade cabinet power supply. So in this version, I added a jumper. The default is normal operation. If you move the jumper over here, you'll get your 5 volt directly from your cabinet power supply rail. The issue is it's up to you to adjust and check the voltage, and you're going to be responsible for making sure that the DE10 Nano does not get more than the voltage it needs. I believe the data sheet for it says it needs under 5.3 volts or 5.4 volts, but that's going to be up to you. So the default position should work for 99% of people. I probably had 5 to 10 people in the first round that had issues with their power supply, and in every case, recapping or servicing their power supply solved that issue. All right, so otherwise, features here, we have the user port here. These headers are for the top plate and for the remote, which is an upcoming accessory. We have here fan voltage selection to make it run a little bit quieter. We have a high level, which you should read not consumer friendly analog video output. Some arcade monitors expect a 2 to 5 volt video level signal. That's what this is for. This is not for your PVM or your Trinitron or any consumer CRT. Another change here, we have instead of an audio switch to switch between local operation and remote operation, again, that's for the MiSTercade remote, we have jumpers because the switch was being somewhat unreliable, or in other words, I had to clean it with alcohol to get it to work all the time. So I switched to a pin jumper. That's a minor detail. We have audio output here. This is line level, and this is manipulated by this volume pot. So basically the volume pot goes here and you get stereo audio through these connectors. Right here, we have the amplifier, and this is a 12 watt amplifier, so it's pretty loud. It's pretty good, does a pretty good job of making the noises. We have some dip switches here. This top one is amp standby, so this is the off position, this is the on position. So if you want to mute your amp, disable it, flip that first switch. The second one makes the coin buttons work, so you can have coin 1 trigger coin 2. The third dip switch there is player 1 free play. All that does is it ties the coin button to start. So if you think about it, when you press start, it's going to automatically do a coin. If you have coin 1 equals coin 2 and you have either of the free plays, when you press start, it's going to hit coin on both inputs. Now this works pretty well on arcade cores. I'm not saying it's perfect, but the problem you have is if you want to play a console core with this and you have that on, I have coin mapped to the select button. So every time you press start, it's also going to press select. So leave these like that unless you really only want to play arcade cores. We have a CHAMA switch here. CHAMA, if you don't know, is a way to get 2-player 6 button off of this JAMA edge. It repurposes this pin and this pin right here, which normally are ground but can be CHAMA. Most original cabinets, well, in fact, all original cabinets don't use this, so you should leave it off unless you absolutely know you're using CHAMA. Here we have a CPS2 kick harness and a CPS1 kick harness. This is not meant for 3 or 4 player harnesses, just so you know. Contact me if you need more info on that. We have 6 USB ports here and the 3 system buttons that you normally find on your I/O board. This header on the bottom here is an expansion header for future purposes. Right now it serves no purpose and I don't really have any plans, but I just thought I'd break out all the remaining pins that I can. So if something comes up in the future, I can create a little adapter there. And then again, my testers here. I had to improvise with the design a little bit, trim these pins flush and put Kapton tape over it because this sits directly over the Ethernet port of the DE10 Nano, and you really don't want that shorting it out or else you're not going to get a booting system. So that's it for the changes in version 1.1. I have here a DE10 Nano. It's been totally stripped down. The only thing I've done is put in the SD RAM, so let's go ahead and get started. First up, the heatsink. Peel off that backing on the thermal tape. Install the heatsink like this. Next, and an important step that many people miss, you're going to take this switch right here. You're going to flip it inward like that. So this should be the layout of the switches. This one on, these three off. Let's then put back, if you didn't disassemble, you won't have to do this part. Let's put the brass spacers back on from the original DE10 Nano. This one's being a little bit funny. I swear they're not all like this. Okay, there we go. Wouldn't be a video without some unforeseen things. Okay, number 2. Number 3. And number 4. Tighten these up just a little bit. Okay, so now this is mostly what your DE10 Nano would look like when you get it from the factory. Next up, what we're going to do is take our MiSTercade and we're going to position it like this. This is where the SD RAM goes right here. We're going to kind of locate it using those holes, and we're just going to push down into place. You'll want to make sure that you have a couple pin headers here. You want to make sure you line them up nicely. You just redo that a little bit so you can see. There we go. So now it's all snug. All right, let's go ahead and install our USB bridge here. You'll notice that there are little detents in the connector. So you're going to want to push in until it kind of makes a snapping sound. That should be about how far it sticks out, if you can see that there. All right, this is the XL board. Let's pause for a second and go through a few of its features. We have here the secondary SD card slot. I expect almost no one to use this. I think it's needed for, at this point, 1 or 2 computer cores, and that's about it, but here it is. This is an audio video port over HDMI. It is exclusively going to be used for the Versus, which is going to be the two-player cabinet linking solution that I'm working on. Here we have player 1 input and player 2 input broken out over HDMI. I have an accessory board that is the receiver for it, which I will show at the end of the video. And you can, it has a Brooks header and it has some screw terminals, so you can kind of manually wire up a cabinet using these two if you do not have a JAMA standard cabinet with this edge. And here I have 4 dip switches, and these are the same dip switches right here. So if you're going to use the XL board, leave all of these off, and then you have these nice piano dip switches to do the same thing, and switch 1 is the same as switch 1 here. So you can manipulate the switches on the edge, which is more convenient. And then lastly, we have a 700 millivolt, which is a consumer level RGB output. It's RGBS. Okay, so this is going to be what you want to use to hook up to a PVM or to a consumer display, and many arcade cabinets also expect 75 ohm RGB video. So the way this works is you simply plug in this pin header to this pin socket. And oh, before I do that, almost forgot, we need to add 2 14mm standoffs to this so that the spacing stays nice. I guess I should specify all the standoffs that I've used, the male to female ones, these ones, are 14mm so far. And these bottom ones are 10mm female to female. Okay, so go ahead and take that, and we're going to position it. And we are going to push it in there. Oh, I'm off a little bit. You may notice that the pin header, get that main one lined up, and then these other ones aren't going to seat all the way. The distance isn't quite right, but it's enough to make a connection here. So go ahead and push that tight so that this connection's good, and you'll see there's a bit of a gap there. Really no problem. All right. Next up, we're going to install these 12mm male to females, which come with the top plate. Now, if you don't have a top plate, skip this step and go ahead and put these screws in up top. If you got the top plate, we're going to use these spacers, and we're just going to thread them in. One here, one here. It's kind of funny, MiSTercade took me, of course, like anything, way longer than I thought it would. Learned a ton in the process, ended up with a pretty flexible, almost like an ecosystem of accessories here. And I mean, I couldn't be more proud of it, couldn't be happier with it. Really nothing I would change. I just need to get the Versus and the remote accessories released. Remote is done, I'm just waiting on the case for that, and the Versus is, I have a working version, but I need to improve it some, and I've just been so busy building kits, designing the new I/O board, the I/O Direct, working on Mr. Express, etc. So here we go, those 6 standoffs in place now. Now I think we're ready to go ahead and put the bottom plate on. And the way the bottom plate works is, if you're looking at it like this, see how the MiSTercade has a little bit of a cutout here so that the USB connector can fit. It goes directly over that cutout like that. So we're just going to take it, flip it over, and we are going to for people wondering, this is the Wow Stick Dual Power. I've gone through a couple iterations of Wow Stick, but this is the one I'm using at the moment. At least for this video. For assembly, I have a wired screwdriver that's faster and adjustable torque. Okay, so there's that. You can see here the lovely logo created by Gelaxian. This plate's scuffed up a little bit because I've been using it, but no worries, still provides that nice protection. This screw here needs a little bit more love. There we go. Okay, so you can see up to here, we have the 12mm standoffs here, we have the 14mm standoffs here, and we have the 10mm standoffs there. That is where we are so far. Okay, now it's time for, let's do the PCB Feet. Any arcade fan knows about these. They come with these 4 screws in your parts bag that have more of a pan head, more of like a flat, if you can see that. So you're gonna go ahead and put one of these on each of the 4 bottom plate corners. You're gonna spin this guy on here like that. There we go. As I was looking at the bottom plates yesterday, I was realizing I'm not sure why I put this foot going off this way and all the other feet going off this way, but I'm nothing if not a little bit quirky, so we'll just chalk it up to that. There's the bottom plate, PCB mount number 2. Take this. Number 3 here. And last but not least, number 4. Okay. Cinch those up just a little bit. Alrighty, so here we have, it's ready to be mounted at this point. Now, if you don't have the top plate, you're done. If you do have the top plate though, there's one more thing, and what we're gonna do is we have a volume knob here and we have a top plate left and 4 screws. Now, this volume knob has a little nut, like a jam nut, and we're gonna remove it. I'm just gonna take some pliers to start it. If you don't remove it, the top plate will not seat flat against these 12mm spacers. It's kind of a delicate balance to make sure that the this button, I could find buttons that were or tactile switches that were the right height, so it sticks up enough, but then it's low enough and flush enough. So go ahead and take off that set of washers, washer and nut. Slide on the top plate. Again, you're going to want to line up the pin header right here. That's going to be the most important thing to get right. So just go ahead and line that up. There we go. Push it down. I think in this one, the fan cable is... Oh, no, it's a button here. There we go. Buttons through, and then I'm going to take remaining screws and fasten on the top. And you might notice this beautiful golden goat logo here. Oh, you know what? I'm going to skip that one. Let's do this one. That's also by Galaxian. I am surrounded by incredible artists, and Galaxian was nice enough to help me beta test MiSTercade, being brand new to Mr. himself, so I couldn't be more proud and thankful for my beta testers. So here we go. Here's the finished product. A nice glossy fingerprint magnet top. And the last thing we want to do is put the volume knob on. So I'm going to go ahead and line up the position right there. Simply press it into place. All right, so now we have a volume knob. Got our top plate on, got the MiSTercade, we got the XL board, and we got the bottom plate and the PCB feet. So here's a little view of what it looks like all around. And that is that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting me, for buying a MiSTercade if you did. I hope you're having fun. Remember, all the profiles are on the input mappings for every arcade game is on my GitHub. So if you're new to MiSTercade, go ahead and grab those. It's a great starting point. I do update them every few weeks as new arcade cores come out. And if you find anything missing, please let me know. I'll add it to the repository. Eventually, I'd like to get an update script working that will go ahead and sync those to your local profile, but there are currently 1,600 and something mappings, and there's just not an easy way to do that at the moment. So we'll have to work on that going forward, but I hope you all have a great day.